After having an Airbnb for almost 3 years now, I really see all the pros and cons and can share with you guys some of the things that I feel like no one really talks about that are issues when it comes to having an Airbnb. But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor, which is Roborock. So whether you guys have an Airbnb or you just want to keep your personal home clean, this is a great product to do so. It's the new Roborock Flexi Pro. This is a wet and dry vacuum, so it can clean wet and dry messes, hardwood, carpet, all of that. It cleans edge to edge, and it can go under furniture that's 15 centimeters. So I could use it under my immediate console, which I was pretty hyped about. It has up to 17,000 PA super suction power, so it can really pick up things without leaving anything behind. And I did some tests so that you guys could see, both with some dry things like some rice and then also with some wet messes. I wanted to see how it would handle this hot honey. You can see it handles this like a pro. I think a wet and dry vacuum is especially great for an Airbnb or a personal home because you can deep clean better, but also faster. You don't have to go through with a vacuum and then a mop. You can kind of just do it all in one go. So it saves you a lot of time. My favorite thing about it is how close it gets to the edge, because I've had this issue with vacuums in the past where they don't quite get to the edge of the wall and then you have to go through with another attachment. This actually gets really close. Like, I feel like it picks up everything, which is amazing because I don't like having to do multiple steps when I'm cleaning. So I will put the link in the description if you want to go check it out. Thank you to Roborock for sponsoring. And now let's get into the issues with Airbnb. So let's get into it with number 5 being accounting for the permit and legal costs. This is something I know a lot of people forget to account for when running the numbers of having an Airbnb. The main ones are the cost of having an LLC, the vacation rental permit cost, and the tax preparation costs. Running an LLC, you do have to pay a yearly fee. Here in California, it is $800 a year, but don't worry if you don't live in California, it's usually not that bad. It's usually only like $50 a year. So that's an $800 expense that I have every year, no matter what. On top of that, we've got the vacation rental permit. In Palm Springs, it's $1,072, which is on the high end. So boom, right there, $1,800 in expenses that you probably forgot about. If you have an Airbnb, you're most likely opening an LLC and you do have to file taxes because that is a business. You can always do it yourself, but there is an opportunity cost to that. Most people do end up hiring this out as well. It's just another expense that can be anywhere from a few $100s to over $1,000 a year, depending on how complicated the taxes are. Number 4 is that it is time consuming. A lot of people like to say that Airbnb is passive, and it is just not passive in the way that investing in stocks is. And for most people, the returns yearly are going to be similar, so you're spending a lot more time for the same return. What people don't realize is that it's more than just communicating with guests on the Airbnb app, it's also maintaining an entire house. If you're managing it yourself, it's going to be a lot more time consuming. Just to give you an idea of what's involved with maintaining a house, here are just the things for April that my property manager has messaged me about. Here we go. There was a windstorm that got a lot of leaves in the pool, and they had to last minute have a pool person come and clean it. Someone cut the cord of a lamp plug, so we had to order a new one. AC needs a yearly tune-up. A pool light broke, needed to be replaced. Guests brought a speaker. My property manager asked me to text my neighbor to make sure they weren't loud. A curtain rod screw went missing, so that has to be replaced. An outdoor storage closet is breaking and needs to be removed. We have to schedule more paint touch-ups. All of the outdoor cushions and umbrellas are showing wear and might need to be replaced. Guests broke a blue ceramic dog. That's about 13 things for the month of April to deal with. Think about your day-to-day life. I don't know about you, but I feel like I just have an endless to-do list, and having an Airbnb just will complicate it even more. If you're trying to live a simple, peaceful life, I just don't think Airbnb is for you. I think just investing in stocks is the way to go. The third thing people really overlook is the fact that you need to account for an umbrella LLC insurance policy. This is insurance that will cover things in case a guest trips and falls and tries to sue you. Your guests start a fire and burn down the garage. Your regular homeowner's insurance policy probably doesn't cover those things, and you have to get an additional policy. On average, this is an additional $2,000 to $3,000 per year. So boom, another random expense. Mine is actually $1,700 a year. That was the best price that I could find. Also, I get a 10% discount for just paying it once a year up front. So if you are shopping for this, ask about that. I will say this is something that goes up with inflation as well. The first year it was only $1,200 and now it is $1,700. So this is something that kind of goes up over time. So this is just another $200 a month to add to your expenses that you don't need to pay if you just are long-term renting out your house. Long-term renter's insurance is way cheaper. Short-term rentals, you know, there's a lot more that can happen, so it's more expensive. Number 2, city regulations can change and ban your Airbnb, and honestly, it probably will change. As an Airbnb owner, you have to abide by the local laws, which can change not on a whim, but over the course of a few months. It really doesn't take that much to get people in the community pissed off about Airbnb and bringing it up to a city council meeting. And before you know it, a couple years later, Airbnb is banned. This happens actually a lot. Even in Palm Springs, it's very regulated. As a lot of you know, I can only rent my house out 36 times a year. But a year ago, a lot of people were getting mad about the Airbnbs again. And so they reduced the number down to 25. So starting in 2025, I can only rent out my house 25 times a year. This is a risk that you take with Airbnb that is very important to know going into it. The local laws can change and you can be totally barred from Airbnb. If you're lucky, you'll be grandfathered in and other people won't be able to get a rental permit. But that's not always what happens. There's truly no guarantees. Pretty much every vacation town that you would want an Airbnb in has some kind of strict rules on it now, and if they don't, they're coming. This is just something to keep in mind if you're looking into making an Airbnb that is very unique and probably not something people want to long-term rent, like a dome house, for example. This is just a huge risk that people that are long-term landlords don't deal with, because cities never ban long-term landlords. Like, name one. I don't know any. I think they all allow it. And the number one problem with the Airbnb business model, if you're someone who's actually trying to make money, is that there is a cap on how much you can make based on the time and money that you're putting in. I feel like I never see people talking about this, but for example, let's say you're thinking about starting an Airbnb, you're gonna put a certain amount of time and money into it. Or you're gonna put that same time and money into selling an online product or starting a YouTube channel. With the Airbnb, you're capped at however much the nightly rents are gonna go for. You're never going to make more than that. Whereas with a YouTube channel or an online business, it is actually unlimited potential. You can scale it a lot easier. This is really why a lot of VCs and private equity firms don't get into the Airbnb space, because it is very hard to scale it. You could always have a successful Airbnb and buy another house, but it's hard to scale because every market is super different. Every house is unique. Every house has unique issues. It becomes more time consuming. Whereas if you have a YouTube channel that's working or an online store that's working, it's actually easier to scale that and make more money from it. And you don't have to put as much money into it from the start either. So just in terms of starting businesses, I just don't think Airbnbs are that good for making money. It's more like you want a vacation house that partially pays for itself or fully pays for itself, or you make a little bit of money on top of it. But I don't know. I see people talk about it on YouTube, like you can get really rich from it, and it's a harder way to do it, I think. Most Airbnbs are gonna get a 10% return or less, especially with how high interest rates and home prices are right now. It's hard to even get an Airbnb that's just gonna pay for its own expenses, let alone make a profit on top of it. So you kind of are better off in a lot of cases just putting your money in the stock market, unless you truly just want a vacation home somewhere and you want to just offset the costs of it a little bit. I really just think if you're considering putting time and money into some kind of business, why put it into something that has a ceiling? Why not put it into something that can just grow and grow and grow? The answer is because you want a vacation house. That's why you would do it. Even in my specific case, like I think about how much time and effort and money I've sunk into that house, and the returns are probably like about the same as what I'd get from the stock market. It was worth it because, let's be real, I could make YouTube videos about it, so it was like 2 birds, 1 stone. But I think for most people, you would find yourself going like, why am I spending all this time and effort on this when I could just invest it passively and also not annoy my neighbors and not ruin the housing market for the next generation? Clearly, my thoughts on owning Airbnbs has changed a lot. And the bonus one that everyone does talk about already is the fact that Airbnb, it's not ruining the housing market. To be honest, in most major cities that have a housing crisis, it's already been banned. You can't really make an Airbnb there. But it is true, like if you buy a house and make it into an Airbnb in some random suburban neighborhood, it is taking away from a family that would want to live in it. Having an Airbnb in a place with a housing crisis isn't really ethical. The better way to go about it is buy land and build a new construction house, add to the housing supply, or build a super unique Airbnb in a rural area that honestly a long-term renter wouldn't want to live in anyway. That is the more ethical way to do it. But buying a house in like Orange County, for example, and turning that into an Airbnb, that's kind of messed up. Yeah, it's kind of messed up. Even in my case, where my Airbnb is, it is just a single family house in a regular neighborhood, like not great. Although Palm Springs, I will say, is kind of a unique case because even before Airbnb was a thing, most of those homes were vacant for half of the year. They're basically second homes for boomers that live in cold places. So I don't feel that bad about it. I don't think that most young families are trying to live in Palm Springs, California. If you didn't know, it's a retirement kind of place. The average age of residence there is 57. So honestly, I don't really feel that bad because most of those houses are vacant. At least people use mine. But yeah, those are some of the issues that I found as someone with an Airbnb, mainly the high fees that you have to pay to run it, the local laws that can change, and the cap of how much money you can make. I really think that there are better ways to make money. If you enjoyed this video, hope it was helpful if you're looking into owning an Airbnb. And I have a bunch more videos about Airbnbs. If you are trying to do more research, go check them out. That's gonna be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.